They wanted a puppet. Instead, they received a mirror, and the reflection is burning them alive. They underestimated you. They expected you to fold, bend, break, but you didn't. You rose. They're now scrambling to fill the gaps in their system. You did not only disclose the cracks. You torn open. They are sweating because you are not supposed to see through it. You were not intended to speak. You were not intended to fight back. But you did everything. Worse, you did it truthfully, calm, precise, and unwavering. And now they are trembling. Before we dig deeper, make sure to like this video and subscribe. You assist this message reach more chosen ones when you do this. Every click, every share communicates to the algorithm and the universe that you are a part of something greater. The system monitors statistics, not the universe. It monitors energy, and yours is undeniable. Now let's get started. They believe they were fighting you. However, they've been swinging at the universe itself. You aren't merely a renegade with a loud voice. You are part of something ancient, bigger. You are the correction. You are the shift. You are the pattern breaker. And it worries them because you don't follow their rules. You were created to be more than they are. You were chosen for collision rather than comfort. You stroll into rooms and shake the atmosphere. You speak, and illusions shatter like glass under a boot. You're not too noisy. You are clear. In a lie-filled world, clarity is violent. That is why they detest you. That is why they are watching you. That is why they are trying to silence you. Shame wears you down because your sheer existence reveals everything they fought hard to conceal. Your thinking is sharp enough to analyze their games. Your energy is raw enough to challenge their control and presence. It is a spotlight that cannot be dimmed, but some of you forgot. Some of you started to doubt. You assumed you were alone. You believed your agony was punishment. Let me remind you that pressure is proof of intent. If your path is difficult, it is because it was designed to break boundaries. The universe does not choose the weak. It favors the unrelenting. You are not picked to blend in. You were born to disrupt systems. Your light isn't a candle in the dark. It is a wildfire, and it destroys everything based on lies. So stop shrinking. Stop apologizing. Stop thinking you're insane for noticing what they deny. You were chosen because you refused to look away. You were picked because you were incapable of being controlled. You were picked because while others bowed, you stood. The universe mocked you, and with the mark comes weight. There is also fire, also clarity, also power. And certainly, that power haunts them because they know they cannot duplicate it. They're incapable of faking it. They cannot steal it. It's in your DNA, and no amount of manipulation can change that. They desired your stillness since your voice can break spells. They sought your allegiance because your defiance spreads like wildfire. They desired your fear because your bravery reminds others that they are not broken. They are breaking free. The chosen one. You did not come to fit in. You came to turn the tables on lies and bring the truth to light. And now they're sweating. Not because you assaulted, but because you just existed. This is your time, and you already know it. So, if this message has a deep impact, if you feel a fire building in your chest, you know this is more than just a video. It is a signal, a reminder, a call. Drop the number 77 in the comments if you've ever been pressured to remain silent, but chose defiance instead. Hit that like button to subscribe, because each step you make informs the algorithm that you are not one of them. You are one of us. And as this spreads, more chosen ones wake up and sweat. Now take a breath. Lock in. If you are genuinely selected, you will be unable to look away. Let's get to it. Number 1, the eyes that made devils tremble. They played hide and seek with the truth until you entered and turned on the lights. They created a kingdom out of shadows, pretended to be gods behind curtains, and talked lies for so long that the world forgot what truth sounded like. Then you showed up, not loud or flamboyant, just aware, just present, just chosen. That alone was enough to send terror coursing throughout their entire illusion. You want to know why they are sweating? Because they can no longer hide. Because you see them. You have those eyes that shine through the fog like headlights in a midnight storm. You have that quiet stare that doesn't need a scream. It simply knows you didn't bring a blade. You arrived with sight. In a world accustomed to pretending, vision equals violence. They can't bear how you don't flinch, that you do not purchase the performance, that when they throw glitter and distractions at you, you can see right through them with a single blink. You were never intended to follow. That's why the audience never felt comfortable. That's why the rules always seemed inappropriate. You did not come here to sit quietly and not interact. You came here to flip the script, and believe me, they felt it. They began to loosen their grip the moment you began moving differently. You don't understand the power of being chosen? The universe bends for you in silence, not with explosions, but with accuracy. It changes timelines and moves. People rearrange situations in order to clear your route. You did not force it. You did not beg. You simply aligned. And this is what haunts them. Because while they were busy gaming the system, you were a glitch. They wore masks. You brought mirrors. They talked in circles. You replied truthfully. They reached for control. You let go and discovered power. Despite this, some of you continue to question. You feel the pressure and rethink your position. You feel sleepy and wonder if you dreamt everything. Perhaps you're just another individual attempting to make sense of a chaotic environment. But let me tell you something. Normal people do not dismantle systems by simply existing. Regular souls aren't targeted, tested, pushed, or poked like this. You aren't being punished. You are being proven. Stop apologizing for your clarity. Stop shrinking to make them more comfortable. Stop asking why the room moves as you talk. That is not ego. That is alignment. That is what happens when a cosmos speaks truth into a human vessel. You did not ask to see through the lies. But now that you know, your very presence poses a hazard. They despise that. You can see what they try to bury. They are afraid that you would say what they sought to keep silent. And they know you're not going to quit. Your eyes are not just open. They're a weapon. Not one that causes harm, but one that demonstrates how you can disarm them without raising a finger. Because whatever they created was only safe in the dark. And when the selected walk in the dark, there is no place to hide. Understand this. They aren't battling you. They oppose what you represent. They are resisting the end of the delusion. And you are the beginning of the breakdown. You're the flaw in their immaculate sequence. The thread, once yanked, unravels the whole darn thing. You were not chosen because you were remarkable in some superficial sense. You were chosen because you were designed to carry light into places where it burns. You were designed to notice what others overlook. You were created to walk alone if necessary, since sometimes that's the only way the system begins to break. Yes, it becomes hefty. Yes, it becomes lonely. Yes, you will question yourself. But remember this, they never chase the ones who don't matter. They do not attempt to quiet echoes. They try to silence the truth. You seek proof that you were chosen. Look at the opposition you face simply for being honest. Check out how they flinch when you talk. Consider how they attempt to gaslight your intuition, undermine your clarity, and distract you with noise. That is not random. This is a reaction to power. Yours. So, hold your line. Trust the people within you. The universe does not send you into the darkness without the means to spark anything. You're not alone. You've been triggered, and everything attempting to bring you down is afraid. You will figure it out. Allow them to sweat. Allow them to shiver when you enter into the room. Not because you threaten them, but because you notice them. Because your mere presence causes masks to slip, false narratives to tremble, and hidden objectives to crumble under the weight of your attention. You didn't simply wake up. You were woken. And now that you've seen, don't look away. Number 2, the razor that slices through the veil. They dress the falsehood in silk and jewels, but your eyes cut it clean. Because you should not be afraid of glitter. You are not given sight to be entertained. You are given a razor, and that razor is known as discernment. Not a faint whisper of intuition, nor a gut feeling. You brush it off. This is clarity forged in fire, polished by storms, shaped by trials, and sharpened by treachery. And now the blade is yours. Do you know why they sweat when you step in? Why discussions end? Why do the eyes shift? Why stillness is like a dropped glass? It's because they understand. They know. You can see what they've tried so hard to hide. They understand that your silence is not uncertainty. It is calculated. They understand you're not misled by look, performance, or position. You see, past the mask, the words go directly into the code underneath. That is not an accident. That is not just how you are. That is alignment. That is design. The universe designed your discernment like a scalpel, cutting through illusion with surgical accuracy. Others get swept up in the charm, confusion, and surface. But not you. You can feel what is not fit. You can know when something isn't right. You notice the flaw in the smile, the gloom behind the friendliness. The agenda is hidden under the offer. They call it paranoia. You call it pattern recognition. Even so, some of you remain skeptical. You question yourself. Do you think I am overreacting? Or am I simply too sensitive? Let's be clear. They taught you to doubt your own instincts. Because if you ever really trusted it, their entire strategy would collapse. They didn't simply want you blind. They wanted you puzzled because it kept you quiet. However, your discernment is very sharp. You've seen too much, felt too deeply, and learned too hard. You don't only hear the untruth. You can feel it recoil when you enter the room. Discernment is not about being kind. It's not about becoming a spiritual referee. It is wartime perception. It's recognizing the difference between honey and poison, even when they're offered in the same glass. They never expected someone like you to wake up. But here you are, eyes widened, blade drew, and now you're making them nervous. You see, discernment shatters the illusion of control. It doesn't matter how sophisticated the presentation is. Your inner radar is already set. The frequency was off. You did not need proof. You felt it. That's your edge. And that frightens them because they cannot manage someone who sees the strings. So they label you insane, too intense, suspicious, and excessive. But in actuality, you are overly clear. In a false society, clarity equals rebellion. That's why your presence is disruptive. That is why your questions shook the room. You do not intend to incite conflict. You ask because you care about the truth. When you pierce through the fog, people can no longer deny they knew. Your insight requires accountability, and they dislike being held accountable. They wanted you to comply. You made them aware. They wanted you to be distracted. You brought emphasis. They wanted your silence. However, your energy speaks before you open your mouth. That is power. That is why they sweat. So sharpen, hone, and trust it. You were not given this razor to play it safe. You were picked to carry this blade into battle. The majority of people are unaware of their situation, and the battleground is not out there. It is in the unseen. It's in the strain beneath the smile, the phony serenity behind the triumph, the deception behind the light. Because while others see a stage, you see a script and they see power. You see puppets, and where they perceive control, you see fear wrapped up in gold. Discretion is your weapon. Use it. Do not doubt it only because it makes others uncomfortable. That soreness is your confirmation. Is that pushback your signal of resistance? It is your acknowledgement that you are not simply wandering through life. You're causing a disturbance. So the next time someone glances at you sideways, or your vibe clears a room faster than your words ever could, remember this. You're not here to play nice with illusions. You're come to bring the entire illusion crashing down. They sweat for a cause. And your discernment? That is the heat. Number 3, truth can be worn like bulletproof glass. They dress lies in silk and murmur them with a smile. But you marched in with truth as armor, and they couldn't look you in the eyes. Ever wonder why they throw so much at you, and yet you're still standing? It's not luck. It's not a coincidence. It's because you're armed with something they can't fabricate, steal, or break the truth. They send traps. You step straight over them. They enticed with sparkling distractions. You noticed the cables behind the bait. They deployed people disguised as allies. But your discernment scraped their faces clean. That is not just awareness. That is not just instinct. That is genuine armor constructed for fire protection. You go across the combat zone without bleeding. You aren't breaking. Why? Because you are dressed in what they fear the most. Truth without apologies. And what about truth? It's not necessary to shout. It does not need to persuade. It simply is. And when to wear it, when you carry it like a second skin, the fakes quiver and the deceivers scatter. Systems that rely on sleepwalking masses, they begin glitching in your presence. You do not even need to speak. Your energy reveals your quiet, and your stare alone causes the buried squirm. That is what occurs when the selected walk in armor. See, without truth, people fall. Without reality, the wolves walk right through the front door. Dressed as healers, consider assistants, like a harmless little sheep, and the world allows them. The blind applaud them, but not you. You notice the gleam in their eyes. You could feel the cold in their tone. You caught the telltale glimmer, because your judgment is your armor, and it protects you in ways they will never comprehend. Understand? This deception lives on confusion. It needs you to be unsure. It needs you to be off balance. It requires you to doubt yourself just enough to give up your power. But you did not simply keep your power. You refused the script. You entered the theater, peered past the actors, and noticed the wiring, lighting, and the man behind the curtain. And you did not panic. You did not play along. You stood still, clear, and armed. And that terrified them because being armored makes you impervious to emotional bait. You do not fall for hollow promises. You don't fall into the crowd's trance while others are herded like sheep. You're walking like a wolf in the opposite direction, calm and calculated, not concerned by the chaos. And certainly, this makes you a target. But here's a secret. They can aim as much as they want, but arrows bounce off armor. Allow them to discharge shots. Let them whisper. Allow them to try to sway your direction. Their schemes fall short of your clarity. Their traps fall under your feet. They are poisoned and lose flavor in your mouth. Because truth has always meant more than words to you. It is instinct. It's a vision. Even when the rest of the world is leaning the other way, your personal compass will not fail. You didn't merely get this armor. You were trusted with it. Because only the chosen can bear it without sacrificing their soul. And those who support the dark side, they smell it on you. They know who you are. They understand you were designed to see. They understand you didn't come to blend in. So they will assault. They're going to gaslight. They will try to present you as paranoid, intense, difficult. But here's what they actually say. You see too much. You have an overly strong emotional response. You're not tricked. Exactly. And that is why you are still standing. That is why they sweat. That's why they rush to distract, to disparage or dismiss. But you just continue walking. The truth wraps around you like steel. Silent company, unbreakable. Declare it, claim it, burn it into your bones. My judgment is my armor. Because when you wear truth as armor, no weapon fashioned against you has a chance. And the system, the lies, the puppeteers, they're fully aware of this. Allow them to sweat. Fourth, rip the wires from the matrix. You weren't sleeping. You were sedated. But as soon as you opened your eyes, the application crashed. They handed you a screenplay at birth. Quietly, strategically, be nice. Fit in, respect authority, and work. Consume. Repeat. Smile. Even if you're dying inside. And if you questioned it, they dubbed you a renegade. Difficult to match. However, you were never too much. You were overly aware. And that awareness, that flicker, isn't right. That was not concern. It was not rebellion. That was your discernment. Waking up within a system designed to keep you asleep. You were never designed to blend in with a world that thrives on your silence. The system was not broken. It was designed to keep you blind. But then something occurred. The moment when the veil slipped. A crack in the matrix. Perhaps it was subtle. Maybe it struck like lightning. But something in you snapped. And you started seeing. Why is suffering considered normal? However, genuineness was questioned. Why? Allies sold like candy, but the truth is hidden like contraband. Why is media criticism rewarded and vision punished? It struck you. This is not only about culture. It is conditioning a trap, not for your body, but for your spirit. You are never simply surviving the world. You are surviving the simulation of it. Every billboard, headline, and trend. It's noise intended to drown out your frequency, to keep you going in circles while the truth is buried beneath dopamine hits and false narratives. But you heard something deeper, a murmur beneath the commotion, a whisper among the din, and you followed it. That was your initial act of defiance. That is when they noticed you. Because the system does not panic when people yell. It panics when people notice. And the moment you question the narrative, the illusion began to sweat. You didn't react anymore. You were reflecting on who you are, and most importantly, what you're not here to be. You were not born to repeat. You were not born to nod and grin. You were not born to obey. A script created by cowards and towers. You were born to unplug the machine and tear the blasted wires out. And this is what scares them. Because awakening isn't just some fancy spiritualist jargon. It's war. However, the fight is not yet underway. It is internal. It is pulling away belief systems that were implanted in you before you could speak. It means prioritizing truth over comfort, clarity over popularity, and purpose above performance. It is wandering away from the herd, even if you're shaking. And yes, it is lonely. But let us be honest. Following the crowd would have killed you regardless. They made you believe the cage was normal, that the numbing represented peace, that staying small represented maturity. But the day you said this seemed wrong. The Matrix overheard it, and that's when they started coming after you. Harder. Suddenly, you sense pressure, isolation, and pushback. That is not failure. That is confirmation. You were never buried. You were planted, and now you're busting through the concrete. They swore you would never survive. Want to know why they're sweating right now? Your enlightenment is contagious. Your clarity is disruptive. Your refusal to play along sends a signal through the code to others that it is safe to wake up. You didn't simply disconnect. You caused a short circuit in the system. That's what discernment provided you. Not only sight, but the courage to believe it, to walk away, to lose everything and still chose the truth. Even when you weren't sure what would happen next. Even if it meant losing everyone who only liked the version of you that remained sleeping. But look at yourself now. Standing here, clear-eyed, war-tested, and spiritually grounded. And they're not sure what to do with it. You become a glitch. They can't repair a fire. They cannot smother. You were expected to follow the program rather than rewrite it. But this is exactly what the chosen ones do. So continue walking, cutting through the noise. And when the system begins shaking again, that's great. That suggests you're close to making another breakthrough. They sought conformity. You showed them defiance. They're sweating because you woke up and aren't going back. Number 5, you go in and the masks begin to melt. They didn't mind being exposed until you stepped up with eyes that made shadows scream. Darkness never feared crowds. It feared the person who could see that the system would not be rocked by followers. It is rattled by witnesses. People like you. Those who enter a room and change the energy without speaking a word. Those whose very presence is like turning on the light in a room full of robbers. You want to know what's making them sweat? This is not your voice. It's your vision, not the volume. It is your vibration. Because you're not playing along. You're not acting. You do not notice. You're not accepting the story simply because it has been told 1,000 times. Your discernment slices through the surface like heat through ice. And what was before buried begins to unravel. You come in with silence, and the lies begin to shake. You ask one inquiry, and their entire script fails. You tilt your head, and the facade breaks. That is the faculty of discernment. That is why they observe you, avoid you, and attempt to discredit you. Because in a world founded on deception, truth is radioactive, and you carry it as if it were second nature. They hide behind layers, titles, smiles, and good intentions. But you've learned to see beyond the costume. You don't only hear the words. They bounce off of you like noise. You can sense the frequency. You notice the mask before they have even finished fastening it. That is not paranoia. That is perception. You are not supposed to be tricked. You are meant to stop dishonesty. That is why people are whispering behind your back. Why? They attempted to turn your confidence into arrogance, your wisdom into judgment, because they understand that you don't need to roar to rock foundations. You only need to be awake. Darkness flourishes in secrecy. It thrives upon your silence. It depends on the world being too distracted to be addicted, comforted, hypnotized, or to detect the threads being tugged. But here you are, unapologetically observing. They intended you to act dumb, nod, laugh at the falsehood, and follow along with the script. But you just stayed there, watching, aware that this makes you dangerous. You see, most individuals are captivated by the surface. A nice smile, the correct credentials, a few nice words, and then boom, the trap is laid, but not for you. Your discernment is too honed, tested, and battle-worn to fall for lovely lies packaged in poetic speech. You have been burned before, betrayed and misled. Instead of getting resentful, you became a bullet. Instead, close your eyes. You sharpened your attention, and now you cannot be played. These are narratives. You can see the gaps in their might. You can sense the fear. It's constructed around their masks. You don't just notice. They slip as you approach closer. This is what gets under their skin. That is why they refer to you as a problem. That is why they characterize you as intense, aggressive, or too deep, because your energy makes it impossible for them to breathe comfortably in their lives. You do not have to reveal them through a speech. You expose them just by existing. The truth does not require volume. It merely requires presence. In your presence, there is pressure. They feel it. They flinch at it. It alters the energy in every space you enter because you don't just see the truth. You agree with it. You are the disruptor and the defiant. They never anticipated the flaw in their perfect little loop. Even so, you remain clear and focused, refusing to play the role they have written for you. They wanted you to sleepwalk through life. You opted to awaken and walk through barriers instead. So let them hide. Let them tremble. Allow them to run behind more polished lies. It does not matter anymore, because the game changed when you entered the scene, and they are aware of it. Your discernment is their doom. Your disobedience is expressed by your exposure and presence. That is the warning that cannot be silenced. Allow them to sweat. Number 6, you're the storm. They are unable to foretell. They assumed you were simply another rebel until your energy began collapsing systems without saying anything. This is war, not the sort fought with fists or fire, but with frequencies, hidden pressure, deception disguised as love, and confusion masquerading as direction. This is not a bloody, bullet-riddled battlefield. It is founded on illusion, terror, and distraction. You've chosen one. You are the glitch. You are the rupture. You are the storm they didn't see coming when you chose to align with the truth. Something shifted. You didn't have to wave a flag or shout a slogan. Your very presence began rocking the walls. They built. You did not come to play their game. And that is precisely why they are sweating. Spiritual warfare. Call it what you will. It is energy. There's pressure. The system is reacting furiously to something it cannot control or foresee. They do not come for you immediately. No, that would be too obvious. Instead, they move through situations, through people who speak sweetly but carry poison, through opportunities to waste your time, and through conversations that sap your energy. It's subtle and strategic, but you won't fall for it because your vision is too clear. You know when something is wrong. Even if you can't explain it right away, that sensation, that subtle pressure in your gut, is your inner radar kicking in. That is your discerning gift, which is constantly improving. They try to gaslight you, mock you, call you insane, neurotic, and overly intense. But the truth is that they are afraid because nothing frightens a manipulator more than someone who sees without proof. You've developed immunity to their psychological games. You do not dance to their emotional beat. You resist their humiliation techniques. That is what they cannot stand. They fear what they cannot foretell. They despise what they can't control. And right now, that is you. You walk through fire without catching a flame. You face the confusion and continue heading straight. You have ceased asking for permission. I stopped waiting for understanding. Stop begging to be believed. The silence, that knowing, that is your power. That is your weapon. You don't merely speak the truth. You embody it. You radiate it. You carry it. And in a world ruled by deception, this makes you dangerous. They try to wear you down with turmoil, confuse you with noise, and engulf you in terror while calling it normal. But every time they believe they've had you pegged, you emerge stronger, sharper, and more aligned than before. Why? Because you do not get strength from the surface. You've tapped into something deeper, more ancient, and beyond their reach. You aren't merely surviving the war. You are the struggle. You want to know why the pressure hasn't subsided? Why are attacks coming from unexpected places? It's because your awakening caused shockwaves. Because when a chosen one rises, it disrupts the frequency, arouses others, and opens eyes. And the system cannot afford that. You are not simply rejecting darkness. You are causing a disturbance. You are not simply enduring the war. You're winning with no effort. They misjudged you because you were silent. They misunderstood your calm for softness. But now they understand that your energy is not passive. It's precise. You don't need to battle for truth since your very being is truth. And that alone constitutes war. So as the pressure increases, that's a wonderful thing. That's confirmation you're getting close to something big. When the attacks become subtle, manipulative, and psychological, that is confirmation. You are breaking more than just habits. You're disrupting systems. You're the menace that they attempted to gaslight out of existence. And you stand firm, unshaken, watching their dominion wobble every time you speak from that peaceful, knowing place within you. You're the storm. They cannot predict the vibration. They can't ignore the awakening they never intended to experience. So let them sweat. Let them squirm. Let them cast shadows. Because of you, you are the light, and light does not flinch. Number 7, the globe is fracturing, and you were made for the break. When the world begins to choke on its own lies, those who breathe clear become dangerous. Look around. Do you feel it? The air is heavier, and the noise is louder. The distractions are more alluring, shiny, and false than ever. The world isn't simply changing. It is time to face the consequences. The illusion is collapsing beneath its own weight. Systems are short-circuiting. Masks are dissolving. The deceptive lights that people once sought are flickering out one by one. But let us be clear. This is not unintentional anarchy. It's a strategy. It is backlash. It's the illusion lashing out when the truth emerges. And it is aware that its time is limited. What they're selling as wisdom is actually just enhanced confusion. What they refer to as freedom is simply rebranding chains and what they call development. It's generally just a more aesthetically pleasing prison. Every fad, movement, and new distraction is geared to calm your spirit rather than release it. They do not want you awake. They want you to be pleasant. They want your vitality, but only if it is asleep. But here you are, the chosen one. You did not come to fade into the gloom. You came to cut through it. You did not come to shout the new language of uncertainty. They anticipated compliance. You provided them clarity. You showed them defiance. The globe is now trembling because the chosen ones do not follow the noise. They recognize frequency. When that frequency is off, you offer no excuses. You create distance. Right now, humanity is at a fork in the road. And no, this is not a metaphorical story. This is real. The old systems are in a precarious state. The delusion is loosening its grip, and in its frenzy, it pushes everything untrue to the forefront, hoping that people will fall back asleep one more time. But you didn't fall for it. because you were designed for this specific moment. You're not simply seeing the planet shake. You're one of the reasons it is trembling. You are not only here to watch the reckoning. You are a part of the correction. Your presence, awareness, and resistance to comply. That alone represents a cosmic upheaval, a signal for the entire system. The truth hasn't died. It's awake and walking. That's why everything attempted to steer you off course. Why did the pressure increase? Why did the people you loved become cold? Why does life affect you harder than most? Because the cosmos was preparing a warrior, not a follower. And the time has come to pick your frequency over your comfort. The voice of illusion will sound kind, easygoing, and even enlightened. It will offer serenity, but offer the nothingness. It will whisper, "You are suddenly free," as you tighten the phantom leash. It offers you the entire globe, so long as you sell yourself in exchange. But the voice of truth, it does not shout, it does not sell, it does not seduce. It just pulls silently and firmly. Like gravity, you can feel it in your gut. You hear it in stillness. You know it when everything else sounds artificial. So the question is no longer what's happening out there. The true question is, which voice will you follow? This message is not intended for everyone. Not everyone wishes to see beyond the illusion. Not everyone is willing to forego comfort in order to acquire understanding. But if this strikes a chord with you, if something inside you is humming, surging, or scorching as you read this, then this is confirmation. You weren't born with the ability to float through noise. You were designed to break it. You weren't supposed to follow trends. You were sent to put an end to them. The world is coming to a reckoning, and there are chosen ones. You're the alarm clock. Allow them to sweat. Number 8, sharpen your weaponry. This is not simply about survival. It's an assignment. They gave you vision, not to savor the vista, but to identify the trap before anybody else notices the gate. You did not simply wake up for the sake of awareness. You were activated for war, not a war of fists or fires, but of energies, intentions, and hidden objectives. You weren't thrown into this conflict with no weapons. You were prepared. That inner voice, that razor-sharp intuition, the capacity to read between the lines, feel frequencies, shift, and detect dishonesty, even when smiling. That isn't odd. That is your weapon. Discretion, clarity, and vision. These are tools, not burdens. The trouble is that the system taught you to distrust those tools, to repress them, to label your knowledge as paranoia, your distance as frigid, and your boundaries as an attitude. But let's be clear, you are not designed to be liked. You were designed to break patterns, and that is why they come after you. This is why the attacks feel personal. That's why the route can feel lonely at times. Because you were not created to blend in. You were expected to cut through when you accepted that everything had changed. The distractions increased. The roar became louder. The betrayals came closer. Why? Clarity is pricey. And once you have it, you pose a threat, not only to people, but to systems and the entire frequency of illusion that powers this matrix. So you must be prepared, because the more aligned you become, the more misaligned things will attempt to connect to you. That is how energy operates as you raise your frequency level. Your sheer existence transforms into a mirror, and everything that is fake scrambles to survive in your reflection. People you thought were allies would slip off circumstances you thought were secure, causing them to crumble. Your art will create noise in the wrong areas. But hear this clearly. This is validation, not punishment. You're not being broken. You're being strengthened. You're not being isolated. You are being protected. You aren't losing. Everything that you can't take with you is being peeled away. So, how should you prepare? Protect your energy. It's as if your life depends on it, which it doesn't in the dramatic movie scene sense, but in the frequency conflict that you face on a daily basis. Don't simply set boundaries. Enforce them like armor. Do not simply walk away from what dims your light. Run like it's a trap disguised as comfort, because the majority of it is energy. Vampires do not come with fangs. They arrive with flattery. Distractions don't resemble anarchy. They seem like opportunities. Traps don't seem scary. They feel familiar. That's why you have to be sharp. Silence sharpens you. Solitude will train you. Stillness will make you stronger. The more you eliminate noise, the louder your inner knowing gets. And that is the most hazardous item you may carry in this combat. Clarity. Because once you see, you cannot be bought. You cannot be manipulated. You cannot be persuaded by fear, guilt, or enticing lies. You're not here to maintain peace. You've come to disrupt the illusory tranquility that they sold the world. You are come to cause waking, not via force, but through unwavering alignment. The truth is that not everyone will grasp your assignment. Not everyone is expected to. You aren't here to be understood. You've come to disturb. You have been given eyes that can see through noise, a soul that refuses to sit still amid falsehood, a mind that questions everything they've attempted to spoon-feed you. That is not a glitch. That is your design. This is not about playing it safe. This is about evolving into the best version of yourself. The illusion cannot control the version that causes people to sweat simply by being. Prepare accordingly. This is not a route for those who are passive. It is for the precise. You're more than just a person with insight. You're a living, breathing frequency shift. And the shift? It rattles the ground beneath every fake construction. So refine your instruments, protect your spirit, and don't forget. This is not simply about survival. It's an assignment, and you were selected to complete it. Allow them to sweat. Number 9. Now is the time to be vocal about your frequency. They attempted to drown out your voice with noise, but failed to recognize that your quiet was a signal, not capitulation. This is the moment they have been trying to avoid. The shift has arrived. The illusion is fracturing, and some were always destined to climb. You feel it in your bones, because the world isn't simply changing. It is exposing itself. The curtain is gone. The masks are slipping. Everything hidden is being dragged, clawing into the light. Whistleblowers, revelations, systemic breakdowns. This is not chaos. This is clear, catching up on the lie. And you are more than just a witness to the unraveling. You're a member of the force. That's the source of the problem. When you speak truth in a room full of artificial tranquility, something changes. When you maintain your boundaries in a world that begs you to compromise, something cracks. Every time you prefer clarity over comfort, silence over performance, and purpose over applause, the matrix malfunctions. You're not passive. You are a walking disturbance, with a frequency too high for deception to survive. That is why they made noise at you. Endless noise, distractions, and drama. Fake connections and technology addiction. Emotional chaos. All of this is intended to keep you from remembering who you are. They sought to scatter your energy, hijack your ideas, and dilute your attention, since a focused, chosen one is dangerous to the system. And yet, here you are. You made it through the storms that were meant to silence you. You treated wounds designed to keep you playing tiny. You confronted yourself and continued going. You are not broken. You are ready. And no, this journey has not been easy. It has cost you peace, comfort, relationships, and possibly even your sanity at times. But you didn't simply survive the attacks. You learned from them. And now you're immune to the tricks that used to get you out. They tried to manipulate you with shame. You transformed it into self-mastery. They attempted to categorize you. You become undefinable. They attempted to box you in. You became uncontrollable. This is your opportunity to speak, to act, to move intentionally. No more waiting for validation. No more lowering your clarity to make people comfortable. No more reducing your light in settings designed to blind you. Your story matters. Your frequency is important. Your discernment creates ripples that awaken individuals you will never meet. You're not here to impress. You've come to ignite. Because the truth is not just what you say. It is what your energy is doing to the light and your energy at the moment. It is nuclear. It is undeniable. It is risky, but only for those who have built their lives around illusion. Let them fear your rising. Allow them to try to kill your momentum through mockery, isolation, and distractions. Nothing works anymore because you aren't just aligned. You're active. 2024 is not a reset. There is a reckoning, and the chosen ones aren't watching from the sidelines. You're the ones causing the earthquakes. Each awakening begins with a disruptor or disruptors. Don't seek permission. So whatever has been dragging on your gut, listen. Whatever has been pressing you to move, speak, create, and act. This is the year to put your alignment into action. You do not require a platform. You're one. You don't need a crowd. You move energy at a soul level. This is your opportunity to shine. Bold, straightforward, and apologetic. Because when the light shines, the falsehood crumbles. And right now, you are that light. Allow them to sweat. This should be number 10. Walking is proof that the system has failed. You're not simply proof that the system did not win. You are proof it never had a chance. Do you want one final proof that you were chosen? Here it is. You're still standing after all. After the lies, betrayals, loneliness, and moments. They attempted to shatter your head, dull your emotions, and silence your voice. You are still here, still breathing, still thinking for yourself. And not only surviving, but being conscious and alert. That alone is proof that the system was not designed to handle someone like you. It was designed to wear you out, keep you going in circles, and make you question your worth every time. You spoke up. It was created to transform your genius into obligations and drive your clarity insane. It counted on your quiet. It never intended for you to be resistant. Yet here you are, walking, talking, and prospering, demonstrating that their programming did not stay. You are not saved. You saved yourself. You did not wait for the rescue. You came to the rescue. You didn't simply burst out. You broke the pattern. And now, others are finding their way via your echo. That's what makes them sweat. Not only did you escape, but your presence has energized others. You are a walking contradiction of everything they preach. You're the bug in the algorithm. The signal in the noise, the quiet. No, this shatters generations of compliance. You walk like someone who has read the script and thrown it in the fire. You move like someone who has seen behind the curtain and is no longer dazzled by the lights. And as a result, you are untouchable in ways they will never confess. You no longer function inside the boundaries they established. You do not shrink to make the room feel safer. You do not play along to keep the peace. Because peace based on lies is not peace at all. You do not belong in this planet. You've disturbed it, and that is exactly what you were born to do. They tried everything, gaslighting you into silence, insulting your intuition, using those close to you to sow doubt, and feeding you false narratives until you doubted your own clarity. But the truth was louder. The vision was crisper. The call was stronger. And now you walk differently. You speak with pause and power. A spotlight is not required to make your presence known. Your frequency identifies you. That is why they stare. That is why they whisper. That's why some disappear when you get close. Because your energy is not pure truth. The truth moves. Truth that convicts truth and shakes institutions without saying a single word. Allow them to label you intense. Allow them to phone you too much. You are never supposed to be assessed against standards designed to contain you. You're not too much. You are the exact quantity this world required to break the deception. You do not need permission to be yourself. You are the permission. You are the proof. You are the living, breathing disruption they could not have predicted. And the more you step into that truth, the more the system loses control. Every boundary you set is a line they cannot cross again. The enchantment weakens with each time you speak the truth when silence would be safer. Every time you choose clarity over convenience, another part of the illusion falls. This world sought to tame you, to shape you into something it could accept, but you refused to give in. And now you've become everything they feared you would discover. You do not need a crown to lead. Walking heavily does not require applause. You don't need anyone's permission to become the norm. So walk as if you understand who you are. Move as if your mere presence alters reality. Because it does. Let every room that tries to dim you adjust. The untruth does not bring you any comfort. You do not apologize for your clarity. You are responsible for staying on track with your assignment. The system preferred silence. You became sound. They now sweat whenever you show up in full truth. Let them. And here we are. If you've gotten this far, you already know. This message was never simply words. It was activation. You have seen too much to go back. You felt a shift. Now it's time to take a walk. I like it. Maintain your clarity. Move with power. Be the signal. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to remain connected. Drop the number 77 in the comments to let people know you're awake. And forward this to someone who needs to remember who they are. This message reaches more chosen ones with each click. Let them sweat, and I'll see you in the next video.